everywhere with no luck.
The union amazingly organized these clinics for the employees. It was a huge relief because now that looking back and I remember the beginning of the pandemic, coming back from work, leaving my shoes outside, taking my clothes, go straight to the shower. It was really scary.
She's been a Vons worker for 30 years, so she turned to an organization she often turns to for help, her union. Unions across the San Diego region are working hard to get their members vaccinated, employing many of the same tactics they use to get laws passed and favored political candidates elected. They're lobbying lawmakers to grant eligibility to their members and securing separate supplies of vaccines from state and county officials. They've also launched vaccine awareness campaigns among their members.
It is a trusted information source for people.
UC San Diego epidemiology professor Rebecca Fielding Miller says all of this will have a big impact, increasing herd immunity in unionized workplaces and vaccination rates in low-income communities.
There's like a fire hose of information happening all the time, but if your union reaches out to you and says, do this and this on this day, that's really helpful.
It's what we do every day.
Todd Walters is president of the local food workers union. He says they've made it easy for members to sign up for vaccine appointments at union-run clinics and are encouraging those who are vaccine hesitant to get the shot.
When you visit members on a job site, it's people don't understand what a big, how important that really is, because you see people on the job site, you kind of have a captive audience, but most importantly, you build those relationships with them where they trust you, they share information with you.
Unions that represent childcare and home care providers and utility workers have also organized their own vaccination clinics. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Union successfully lobbied the governor to add utility workers to Tier 1B so they could begin receiving vaccines in mid-March. Now, Nate Fairman, the business manager for the local branch, says more than 50% of his members are vaccinated.
Your union is one of your most trusted sources of information. People get inundated with information from, their employer, from their, community groups. But when somebody is a member of a union and their union is communicating with them directly about the importance of an issue, whether it's, a candidate that's a worker champion that we really want to get on a school board or an irrigation board or a city council, or an employer, or the importance of wearing a mask or the importance of getting a vaccination. Study after study shows that workers involved in a union, workers that are members of a union, they trust a message coming from their union.
Bridget Browning, president of Unite Here Local 30, a hotel workers union, says she's letting her members know that skipping the vaccine may cost them work.
I think we're going to have to really tell our members, well, if you don't get vaccinated and this customer says you can't be in their banquet room, you can't be in their banquet room.
Even for non-union workers, pressure from coworkers and friends can often make a difference in whether they take the shot. Paolo Morales is the sushi manager at Sushi Deli in Mission Hills and says at first many of his coworkers didn't want the vaccine, but now they're coming around.
We're never gonna go over this situation if the 50% of the people got the shot and another 50 just wait to see what's gonna happen.
After seeing Morales and others get their shots, another coworker, Daniel Flores, says he will get one too.
Yeah, it's a new vaccine and we don't know much about it because it's barely coming out, but it's all about each other's health, So we should all get it, be protected,
Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
And we will have more from Claire Tregesser later in this newscast, including a look at how local places of worship are talking about the vaccine as some churches remain skeptical, others are embracing the science. When it comes to two of our major colleges, there's not much of a choice. If you want to return in the fall, you'll need to get the COVID-19 vaccine. The Cal State and UC systems are both requiring vaccinations for students, staff, faculty, and labor groups. Locally, those schools include UC San Diego and San Diego State. Some exceptions will be allowed on medical or religious grounds. UC San Diego is considered a model for its response to the pandemic. KPBS education reporter Joe Hung updates us on the university's progress.
UC San Diego has been a success story in controlling the spread of COVID-19 on campus. Thanks to mandatory testing and safety protocols, about 8,700 students are living in university housing, and the positivity rate among students is a fraction of the county-wide rate. UC San Diego Chancellor Pradeep Khosla said it was all due to the collaborations between faculty scientists and administrators, but above all, he credits the students.
Our students behaved exemplarily well. I mean, it was unbelievable. We were expecting it, and they beat our expectations and then some. So to me, they were the reason we were so successful.
As of now, it is unclear whether the University of California Board of Regents will require students and staff at all UC campuses to be vaccinated before returning in the fall. Khosla said the Regents should require vaccinations except for people who aren't able to for medical reasons or strongly held religious beliefs.
Because at the end of the day, our job is not just to be individually independent. We also need to be part of a societal structure. So we, in addition to safeguarding ourselves, we also have to be responsible for people around us. So it's a balance that we have to think through, right?
And the experts on his team agree. Robert Schooley is a professor of medicine at UC San Diego who oversaw the COVID-19 task force at the university. He said the COVID-19 vaccine should be added to the list of immunization requirements for students living on UC campuses.
That's why we have, for example, measles vaccines required, chickenpox vaccines. We look at bacterial meningitis vaccines, and the COVID vaccines are actually better than the ones we already have, and the disease is more severe. So it really makes medical sense for these kinds of settings to have vaccine be a part of one of the requirements to be here.
Among local colleges, the University of San Diego has announced it will require all students to be vaccinated before returning to campus. Point Loma Nazarene University will not be requiring students to be vaccinated. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
San Diego Unified is celebrating its Teachers of the Year ahead of National Teacher Appreciation Week. This year's honorees are Thomas Courtney from Choyas Mead Elementary, Guadalupe Celadon from CPMS Middle School, and Sharon Apple from Hoover High. A virtual celebration is planned for next week with the theme Teachers Leading in Crisis, Fostering Resiliency, and Building a Better San Diego. In North County, there's frustration among some parents who say the San Marcos School District is slow to reopen. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne spoke to parents who say they want a clear plan forward.
5 days now! 5 days now! 5 days! Parents and students rallied outside the San Marcos Unified School District offices Monday morning. Ginny Merrifield is the executive director of the North County Parent Association.
There are no more restrictions about returning to class. It is safe for teachers and for students, and it's time to go back.
Last month, a judge ruled that 6 North County school districts involved in a lawsuit had to reopen their schools for in-person instruction to the greatest extent possible at the earliest practicable time. San Marcos and Oceanside Unified are the only 2 named defendants who have not fully resumed in-person learning since the order. Parent Kimberly Imhoff feels that if Legoland and places of worship are open, schools should be too, for the sake of the students.
School districts, San Marcos Unified had told us, well, you can't compare us to the smaller districts like Carlsbad and Encinitas because we are so large. Well, San Diego Unified is much bigger than we are. So if they can do it in some form or fashion, then we should be able to also.
Ashton Rosenzweig is a 10th grader at San Marcos High.
And I think going back now would provide the momentum we need to ensure that we're back next year, especially since if I don't, I've been told by my parents that we're going to have to move schools. So.
In a statement, the Oceanside School District said they are working closely with the County Health and Human Services to make sure they can provide the safest and healthiest learning environments possible prior to moving forward with bringing students back in a larger capacity. San Marcos Unified did not respond to our request for a statement. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
It's a hopeful time for arts and culture in San Diego. Some local institutions used the past year as an opportunity for a reboot and to reinvent themselves. John Carroll shows us how that's especially true for the reopened Museum of Us.
If you think of Balboa Park as a crown, then its museums are the crown's jewels. Among them, the Museum of Us, formerly known as the Museum of Man. After months of being closed, it opened its doors to visitors once again.
It is so wonderful to see this building alive again with people.
The people were pretty happy about it too.
I think it's super exciting. I think being able to come see stuff like this, I think like Balboa Park itself is such a big part of the community in San Diego, so I think it's definitely exciting for people that are traveling or even just like, local San Diegans to come back and be able to enjoy the different perks of their community again.
Over the course of the pandemic closure, many museums in the park took the time to do the kind of maintenance it's difficult to do when a bunch of people are around. Here, they also took the time to do something else, to think about the issue of pay equity.
The people that, meet the public every day have traditionally been paid much lower than administrative staff.
Some of those people had to be furloughed, but now they're being hired back with a big difference.
We hired them at a starting wage of $20 per hour, so living wage plus for our front-facing staff.
The pandemic has brought changes large and small to all the museums in Balboa Park. Here at the Museum of Us, it has sped up a reckoning the museum has been engaged in over the last several years with its ties to European colonialism, beginning with the front facade. Haddon says they worked with Google's Arts and Culture website to present a more fulsome picture of the facade.
It's often not shown from the viewpoint of Native Americans. It's shown from the European viewpoint.
Finally, there is the museum's name change, in the works before the pandemic hit. From Man to Us. The museum says the change better reflects its work towards equity, inclusion, and decolonization. It's open Wednesday through Sunday, 10 to 5, another welcome step on the path to life in the post-pandemic world. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Before you settle in to watch the Oscars this weekend, local filmmakers are showing off their latest work. The Asian Film Festival's Spring Showcase is happening online due to the pandemic. A warning to viewers, though, some of the themes are disturbing. KPBS cinema junkie Beth Accomando has a preview.
PAC Art's Spring Showcase has always been a joyous celebration of Asian film. But the pandemic, coupled with a recent rise in anti-Asian hate crimes, makes this year feel different, says artistic director Brian Hu.
Feels like we need to do this now. But the pandemic has created challenges. Some films aren't as available as they used to be. And then, of course, the anti-Asian attacks that have been very visible remind us that perhaps we need to be thinking about our visibility as a film festival as a way to combat the dehumanizing images that we often see, or just to show, especially to other Asian Americans, that there's plenty that we can still be joyous about.
That's why Hu created the program Songs Our Elders Taught Me. These are films that focus on older Asian American characters. Hu challenged himself to find films that have never been available streaming, like Cosmopolitan and The Wash.
One of our films, The Wash, it was never released on DVD, but the filmmaker reminded me that there was a Laserdisc of it. So if we could track that down, he let us show it. And so we tracked it down, and we tracked down the equipment necessary to capture it digitally.
In another sidebar called Sovereign Cinema, the focus is on documentaries about Hawaii.
I discovered that there is a film collective that's been around for decades called Namaka Okaena, and they've been making the most incisive, committed political documentaries that I've seen kind of anywhere in the world.
One of the films is Act of War, The Overthrow of the Hawaiian Nation, a video documentary from the 1990s. The technology may feel dated, but the documentary is packed with information.
And in 1893, in an act of war, in an armed invasion, and in violation of international law, our nation was taken.
It's so dense with information. It changes your entire perspective on Hawaii's notion of sovereignty.
Cane Fire is a new documentary that cleverly uses Hollywood movies like Blue Hawaii with Elvis Presley
This is the moment
to show what has colored our perspective on the islands.
I've waited for.
the culture has been appropriated. Hollywood films are all very quote unquote respectful to the Hawaiian culture. It's very much about the music and the costumes. But like, what good does that do for somebody in Hawaii who is seeing all of their natural resources and their land being increasingly bought up and turned into property through the very same kinds of institutional mechanisms that are creating these kinds of like respectable images.
Who has also programmed a wonderful film from Iran's Majid Majidi called Sun Children, which looks to street kids.
But he has the spin on it, which is a heist film. It's still grounded in realism, but there's like it has this jolt of energy of like are they going to find the treasure that makes this really stand out, not just in Iranian cinema, but for Asian cinema more broadly.
And since he mentioned jolts of energy, that's my cue to highlight my favorite part of the festival, Mystery Kung Fu Theater. The titles are a secret, but you're guaranteed outrageous old-school kung fu action.
And I think our audiences are going to have a blast with the two films that we've chosen for this program. It's going to be a double feature, and it's going to be live streamed via Twitch.
And streamed on a Saturday morning to remind many of us of how we discovered kung fu movies on TV. Attendees will be able to chat with each other online to savor every delicious line and applaud every crazy martial arts move. So despite a serious social context for this year's spring showcase, there's still joy to be found. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
Getting online for school, work, or even entertainment isn't a simple process for many San Diegans. Access is a big hurdle, and the city is taking steps to close the equity gap. Christina Kim tells us about a new digital investment.
Good morning, everyone.
San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria laid out a plan to expand free internet access to the more than 53,000 San Diegans living without reliable broadband.
For us to be a truly great city, we must address digital equity head on and make sure that every San Diegan has access to the opportunities of our digital age. And that's why we're announcing today that the City of San Diego is offering free Wi-Fi at over 300 new locations as a part of our new SD Access for All program.
Mayor Gloria's announcement, which builds upon a program started last year under then Mayor Kevin Faulconer, also includes new laptops and 900 mobile hotspots that people will be able to check out from select libraries. Like this one in San Isidro. It received its first hotspots a little over 3 weeks ago and has been operating an outdoor computer lab since October. San Isidro's branch manager, Elaine Sinswan, says the internet access has been crucial to her predominantly Latino and bilingual patrons who use the computers to study and apply for jobs.
I get a lot of happy stories of people who are able to finish their work, which can be huge, especially when you have limited access and you have to go to maybe 2 or 3 different places just to finish the application and then maybe come back inside to print. So what's easy for us who are very well connected and have a printer and Wi-Fi, it can take another person, a few days just to finish what they need due to time limits and constraints.
The newly announced program comes on the heels of Mayor Gloria's proposed budget cuts to San Diego libraries, which will cut down hours but be offset by new digital resources. Christina Kim, KPBS News.
Despite the progress with vaccines and low case rates, hundreds of people every day are still getting COVID-19 in San Diego. Doctors now have more effective treatments and therapies for moderate cases. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says it's now being offered in North and South County.
In Chula Vista, health officials are opening up a new early action treatment center for those who have recently tested positive for COVID-19 and are showing moderate symptoms.
The sooner the better is always best for this treatment.
Dr. Maria Cardiero Sincerios with San Isidro Health is describing a therapy process called monoclonal antibody treatments.
It really is there just to help your immune system fight this virus.
The antibodies are lab-made proteins that attack the virus, potentially keeping those who have tested positive from developing more severe symptoms or dying.
This is a great opportunity for South Bay residents to seek early COVID-19 treatment.
This new facility is run by San Isidro Health and is located at an old fire station in a zip code with the second most reported COVID cases in the county.
If you do test positive for COVID-19, we urge you to access treatment with the monoclonal antibodies as soon as possible.
Up until now, just Palomar Health was offering the therapy locally at their old downtown Escondido hospital.
It's a fairly low risk therapy with a very high reward.
Dr. Omar Kawaja is Chief Medical Officer for Palomar Health. He says since they started offering the treatment in February of this year, just 200 people have used it.
Has it been safe for people? Has it been a good treatment? Yes.
He says just 2 of those patients were later admitted to the hospital, and the whole antibody treatment process is fairly simple, requiring just 1 visit.
They're going to give you an infusion, sort of like a saline bag that you might see hanging in a TV show. That's going to run in over about 30 minutes, and then you're going to hang out with us for another hour. So it's going to take a little bit of your day.
The treatment is available for those 12 and older with mild to moderate symptoms, and it's available at no cost, regardless of immigration status. The antibodies are designed for those who may get very sick from the virus.
If you're over 65 and you're positive, you definitely get it. All other age groups, you need to have some type of comorbidity.
To see if you qualify for an appointment in Escondido or Chula Vista, people are urged to call 619-685-2500 for more information. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
This week, one of the scientists who developed the Pfizer vaccine said a booster shot will likely be needed, and now Moderna says it's developing its own. The company's CEO says it hopes to have the booster ready for the fall to deal with any COVID-19 variants. Clinical tests are underway and results are expected next month. Earlier, we showed you how local unions are reaching out to workers, encouraging them to get the vaccine. Well, some places of worship are doing the same, but others are more skeptical or hands off. Claire Tregesser looks into the mixed messages from faith leaders and how it might affect how quickly we put the pandemic behind us.
The future of humanity and freedom lies in the hands of the believing Christians.
In February, a large crowd gathered at the Awakened Church in San Marcos to hear from Dr. Simone Gold, a well-known anti-vaccine doctor. She spoke with the church's founders and made several claims regarding the safety of the vaccines that have been debunked by health authorities and mainstream scientists. Awaken has 5 locations in San Diego. It is the same church that's been the source of significant outbreaks and that county officials have called out for a flagrant disregard of COVID-19 health orders. Awaken's anti-vaccine stance could have a broader impact on our region, says UC San Diego epidemiologist Rebecca Fielding Miller.
Folks who are part of a community that's not interested in vaccinating are also folks who, go grocery shopping and go out to eat and whose kids go to school.
But Fielding Miller says faith-based communities can also be key drivers in the push to reach herd immunity.
People do mix randomly-ish, but not really, right? And if everybody who you work with or everybody who you go to church with, everybody who you socialize with has gotten vaccinated or is talking about getting vaccinated, then it is the social norm. It is, this is what we do.
We're doing everything we can to encourage people to obtain the vaccination as soon as it's available to them, and to get it done so we can all resume, a much more normal life.
Kevin Eckery is a spokesperson for the Catholic Diocese of San Diego. The Catholic Church and many other local faith-based organizations are on the other end of the spectrum from Awaken. They are actively encouraging followers to get vaccinated. Some local churches are taking vaccine advocacy a step further by actually helping put shots into parishioners' arms. Last month, the Bayview Baptist Church in Encanto held a clinic where 500 people got vaccines. Pastor Keith Brown says the event helped some who were skeptical of the vaccines make the decision, including him.
And I was skeptic as well when they first had him come out saying that it came out too fast. I was skeptical, but what made me change my mind is once I heard the statistics.
Nationwide, survey data show that white evangelical Protestants are less likely to get vaccinated than other racial and religious groups, while other evangelical megachurches in San Diego don't appear to be taking the same anti-vaccine stance as Awaken. They are not advocating for vaccines either. Rock Church's assistant pastor, Mickey Stonier, says his church won't be making any recommendations.
We're not medical doctors. We're doctors for the heart. We encourage people to
adhere to all the safety, health, eat, exercise, keep yourself safe.
When asked why Rock Church isn't promoting the vaccines the way other churches and religious organizations are, Stonier says they don't stand in judgment of what other churches are doing. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
And that story is an example of the in-depth coverage provided by KPBS News. And you can find all of our content on our YouTube page. In addition to reporter stories, you can also stream KPBS podcasts and watch full episodes of KPBS Evening Edition. Thanks for joining us for this special edition of KPBS News. I'm Maya Trabulsi. For all of us here at KPBS, thanks for joining us.